put a little nugget at the top that, tells me why I should care. It could be bullets, it could be just a paragraph.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Media Coffee. I'm your host, Sami Saad, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Janna Graber, the managing editor of Go World Travel magazine. Janna is also an award-winning writer and author of multiple travel books, which you can find on her website, jannagraber.com. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. It's great to have you. I want to start with your journey in journalism and your career a little bit. You've had an incredible career reporting from 60 countries. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how you got started, and what led you to launch Go World Travel magazine?
Sure. Well, I started first as just a regular freelancer working a lot for newspapers, was a stringer for the Chicago Tribune. Also did a lot of magazine writing for like Good Housekeeping, Parade, Red Book. And one day, my editor at the Chicago Tribune gave me a story to write on Canberra, which is the very unknown capital of Australia. And so I got to go to Canberra and write that story. And I was, of course, like, wow, people actually write travel content for a career. And so I started doing a lot of freelance travel writing, and I still write for some of those long time contracts that or contacts that I did long ago, like several AAA magazines and a couple other outlets as well. And I noticed something about American travel content, and that was, well, it's only natural that we cover mostly America or our nearby neighbors as far as travel writing. And I really see the world as one big, great, big backyard to explore. And so I thought there was a need and a niche for a publication that focused on world travel. And the US is just one of the destinations that we cover. We do a lot of US coverage, but we also, last week I was in Tonga. So we see the world as a great big um, playground for travelers who are passionate about learning, who are curious travelers who want to explore more of the world. And so I founded Go World Travel Magazine, and it is a digital magazine for those travel junkies like me who spend a lot of our time and maybe our money on traveling. And we're just passionate about seeing the world. And so we've curated this really niche audience of frequent travelers who travel far, travel often. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm also a big proponent of traveling myself, so I like how you described that the world is a playground for us to explore, and
Yeah.
I believe that as well. You've now led Go World Travel for more than a decade now.
Yeah.
I believe it's 12 years.
Yeah.
And since launching it until now, how has your role evolved over the years? What are some of the biggest shifts that you've seen running a digital publication?
Well, the technology of running a digital platform changes constantly. So part of our job is just, keeping up with what's going on. But what's been exciting for us, I think, is just different ways to reach our readers, different platforms, different mediums. So a huge part of what we do is goworldtravel.com, which is our website, which has over probably 3,000 articles on more than 90 countries. But we also have a podcast. We shoot a lot of video now. That's what we were doing in Tonga last week. We shot a whole bunch of video content that we can use. And so there's different platforms, I think, now available to connect with our readers and also to share the stories that we want to share in really powerful mediums, like video is really cool. So I think that's a huge thing. We do a lot more collaborations now than we, obviously did in the past. It was old traditional advertising, and now our destination partners have a much broader platform, a more effective platform to share, collaborations, and, for us to share that message with a passionate traveler. So journalism has changed in that we have different tools and we have different ways. Um, our business models changed, so there's just constant change. That's the given.
Mhm.
But it's exciting because that means there's probably even ways coming soon that I can't even imagine right now that we can share the stories of travel with people who are passionate travelers.
And now that you're, grown so much and you have over 200 contributors and freelance writers writing great articles about travel from all over the world, how do you find those writers? What's your process look like when, you look for writers and or, for assigning and approving stories in general?
Yeah. Um, a lot of writers find us because they are looking for a home or maybe a story that wouldn't run, in a regular newspaper. Maybe it's a niche, maybe it's Riga, Latvia, and most places aren't going to write a story about Riga, Latvia. But you know what? We will because our readers are curious and they want to find that. So a lot of them find us. We work with a lot of established writers, a lot of writers from SATW and other travel journalist associations. So they find us. I'll, and we also have a lot of really good relationships with friends in the PR industry. I mean, I have friends who I've worked with in the PR industry for more than 20 years now as a journalist. And I know when they come to me and they say, "Hey, I think this is a fit for you." Maybe they send me the release, but at the top they're saying, "Hey, Janna, isn't this the kind of stuff that you guys are looking for?" Or I think this is, why this is a fit for you. So I think relationships within the industry are really important for us. That's where we get a lot of our stories. We focus on first person journalism, first person travel storytelling. And I think that's even more important today when anybody can say, create me a story on Tokyo, and the AI will create, just a bland piece on Tokyo. But if we have a writer who's in Tokyo who is talking about, this particular neighborhood or this area with first person insight, that's a whole different ballgame. So we do a lot of our content comes from press trips,
Hmm.
boots on the ground in the destination. And so, as far as you guys with Cision and PR Newswire, I think that relationship between the journalist and the PR expert is important, and it's vital to what I personally do, and vital to what our writers do.
What's your editorial strategy looks like? How do you approach content planning? And what type of stories resonate the most with your readers? I feel like PR professionals would love to know that.
Yes. Um, Content planning, obviously, we're trying to look at some trends, but we don't want to just write about trends because everybody writes about trends. So, yes, that's an important part of some of our content. But honestly, most of our content comes from someone approaching us and saying, "Hey, I was just in, and I got this story idea." So we listen to the story, we see what the experience was for the traveler, and then assign or buy the piece. The same thing with PR people when they're saying, "Hey, we just launched these small group tours in Cambodia. It's for curious travelers that are interested in this. I think this could be an interesting niche for you guys." So we look at it and assign the story. So a lot of our content is not done under a master plan. And maybe that goes against some business sense. But you know what? I'm looking for um, good storytelling and I'm looking for interesting travel experiences. It could be the height of luxury. We do a lot of luxury travel. It could be soft adventure, cultural travel. We don't do a lot of specifically on arts only travel.
Hmm.
For some reason, we just don't do as much of that. But if it's part of a destination story, then we're going to talk about it. So we want to provide content to the traveler that says, hey, here's an experience or here's a destination, and look what you guys can do there. Because
Hmm.
we found this, this experience, and this is what we're sharing. So we're just always constantly on the lookout.
Yeah,
Um, look out for good content. Yeah.
for sure. And you talked a little bit about where you get the story ideas from. You mentioned press releases. Do you look at the press releases? What attracts you the most when you see a press release? And are there any thoughts you have that you
Yeah.
think they could be better tailored to travel media and travel editors and journalists like yourself?
I think the best emails that come to me are with the press release as a background piece of information. So, but with a little note at the top. Why should I care?
Hmm.
It's here's the press release, but here's like a paragraph or two about, you know, why it matters, what the nugget, because sometimes when you just get inundated with press release after press release, you kind of get blind to reading them. So put a little nugget at the top that, tells me why I should care. It could be bullets, it could be just a paragraph, but pull out why
Hmm.
why this press release, why now, and why is it cool. And I'll be honest, we're not going to write a story on somebody getting a new promotion at a hotel. It's not going to happen. But if the hotel is part of this destination story and this hotel has some really cool experiences and maybe it caters to families, that's a story.
Hmm.
Tell us, why is it this hotel an important part of a travel experience in that city or that destination? So yeah, so to me, that's the most effective press release. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say just pull out the most
The nugget.
important the hook, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean to include it in the email, right? Not
Yeah.
the press release itself.
No.
Have it in the email. I was gonna ask you what makes a great media pitch.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think you kind of answered that. But do you have any more thoughts about media pitches? Do you like when they're short, concise, or do you want more information, more assets or
I
details?
like I like when the media pitch will say just a couple of paragraphs,
Hmm.
maybe a link to photos. Um, and then you can put more information below in a press release or just more information. But it's just those few paragraphs, And I do like we are a very visual website, so a
Hmm.
lot of great photography on our site. So I like to know when there is great photography available. I think that's important. Um, it's amazing to me that a lot of places don't have a media library. It's just it's huge, to have a media library accessible where, especially, for properties or destinations, travel's a visual
Hmm.
story. So I think that's an important tool too. But yeah, just like I love it when it's personalized. Say, hey, I saw this, and you guys obviously do cover stories in Vietnam. Hey, there's this small cruise here that da da da. Yeah, that makes a difference, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's great to know. Are there things that PR professionals, communication professionals should avoid when they're pitching you? Any specific type of stories or maybe mis common mistakes you see on media pitches? Anything that comes to mind where you
Yeah,
should, you advise them not to do it if they're trying to get a story and go world travel.
yeah. Well, I mean, like I mentioned, like announcements about personnel.
Hmm.
I mean, I know they have to do that for the client. A lot the client wants does, but those don't really get anywhere. It's more, yeah, I guess we're just talking about could this topic really be the subject of a travel story? And if so, then that's of interest to us. If not, then it's just not a fit for us. So we just let that one slide by. But um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just in general, how has travel content changed, do you think, and
Mm.
throughout your career, and how has it impacted the stories that you cover?
How's it travel? It's gotten shorter,
Yeah.
obviously.
Hmm.
When I first started out, I would write 2,000 word stories in the
Wow.
newspaper. It was great, but it's gotten shorter. We, as I said, as I mentioned, we do a lot of first person travel, but people respond as well to roundups, um, especially when we're just looking for a quick fix in our stories. So sometimes they just like lists. People are curious about lists, So we do have some of that because sometimes that's what people are looking for. I think it's just gotten shorter, and with the invention of AI feeding content, I think the focus should be even more on first person expert insight travel.
Mhm.
Um, versus just straight reporting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's especially with people's attention span is getting shorter. Content is getting shorter as well. But it's also weird because, you see podcasts out there, they're like an hour, 2 hours long, and
Yeah, podcasts. You're right.
yeah,
Because we can listen while we're doing other things, right? I
hmm
love podcasts because,
yeah.
it's like something you can do. I would agree with you. Podcasts can be longer.
Is one way, yeah, for sure. And I love listening to people's travel stories as well. I've especially on podcasts when they talk about their travels and their experiences. That's always very interesting to me. Um, if you don't mind, can I ask you a few questions? Maybe one question about AI. I know we didn't include that, but
Mhm.
if you want to talk a little bit about like your use of AI in your content generation, do you use it for, earlier you mentioned that, you could generate a picture in AI, like a travel picture, but you'd rather have someone who's there
Yes.
on
Yeah.
site and take maybe actual pictures, write about actual experiences. So what's your take on the use of AI in content?
We would never use AI for pictures.
Hmm.
Just never. Um, there's way too many real pictures and stock photo libraries if you have to look for a photo. So never.
Hmm.
I think it's good for organizing thoughts. So sometimes, if we're looking to tackle a big subject, I'd like to see like how would an AI lay out um, the organization of an article.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it can be a really helpful tool. I don't necessarily think you should rely on it for research. Um, and I think you should go straight to the sources. One source that we do use a lot is destinations, the tourism bureau's websites. If anyone knows their destination, it's them. So we consider that to be a really good source if you're needing to do fact checking rather than using AI. Um, so I think it has its place. We are unfortunately starting to get writers sending us completely AI written articles. So trying to weed through those, it's pretty obvious most of the time. And I don't mind if a writer is using it for like thought, changing of wording, change wording. That's great. It's just when it's a full
Hmm.
AI article
Hmm.
passed off as, your work, that's not cool.
Yeah, I think most people would agree, at least most people I spoke with, journalists and editors would agree with what you're saying, and they have similar use of AI, not relying on it, but also it can help with, inspiring ideas or
Mhm.
maybe structure certain
Restructuring, yeah.
sentences or paragraphs. But yeah, that's great. I appreciate you answering.
Yeah.
I have one last question. Do you have any favorite travel destinations or some
Oh
of
my gosh.
your favorite travel destinations or tips that you'd like to share with our
Mhm.
audience?
Um, the tip I always tell people is don't travel in the peak season. Always try and travel in a side season or a shoulder season, or you'll have a better experience. It's cheaper. But as far as my favorite, um, I mean, it's hard. I went to school in Austria, so I love Vienna. I would consider that one a second home.
Wow.
And um, as far as if you ask me where I should could go tomorrow, I would say I'd go back to the Maldives
Wow,
and go
yeah.
riding. Yeah.
I bet I've seen Maldives in pictures only, but I can only imagine how wonderful and amazing it is to be there in
Mhm.
person.
It-
Yeah,
I like
mhm,
far-flung destinations.
yeah,
I'm not scared of like a 14-hour flight. I
yeah.
will go.
Me neither. I'm definitely used to it. I went to Berlin last year, and it was one of my favorite cities. And I said to myself, I want to go to Vienna next. So,
You
uh,
should go.
yes, yeah.
It's a really special city. It's a really
I'm
special.
sure. I'm sure. Thank you so much, Jana, for doing
Yeah.
this, for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I've learned a lot from you. Be sure to check out Go World Travel Magazine. And yeah, have a great day, Jana. Thank you so much again.
Nice chatting with you. All right. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye-bye.